Now is it okay, ma'am?
No, ma'am. I just a minute. Yes, it is starting now.
Okay.
No. Yes, yes. Now it is visible, ma'am. You can start.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
It is the first slide now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, what are plastics? Plastics are synthetic polymers and they are made up of long chain hydrocarbons and additives. So, these long chain hydrocarbons is the uh, constituent which makes it very complex. And we all know that plastics have been omnipresent in every sector. We can find it everywhere. Lot of a variety of products are being made of plastic, and among all the constituents, polyethylene is most widely used because it is resistant to acids, water, and other organic solvents. So that's why it is used in various applications. Then again, there are two classes of plastics depending upon how they are used: thermoplastics, thermosets. So why we are discussing this is because the component of recycling and remolding, reshaping comes into it. Thermoplastics are the group of plastics which can be melted, reshaped, and also they are recyclable. And the most common examples are that polyethylene, polypropylene, PVC. And what are they used in? They are used for packaging, consumer goods, toys, and other products. And thermoset plastics are just opposite of this. It is difficult to uh, mold them. It is a irreversible process. Once they are framed, it is very difficult to use them again. And where they are used in automotive sector, electric insulation, because they don't get affected by heat or temperature. So this property also makes them less recyclable. Then again, between those two categories, thermosets and thermoplastics, there are other categories which you can see on the screen, like PET, HDPE, and you can below you can also see the examples. Like PET, the examples are plastic bottles; HDPE, like shampoo bottles and other consumer products which we use. That hard plastic is made up of HDPE. PVC, we all know. Then the other examples also you can see. So we use plastic in, as I said, different sectors, all the sectors. From morning till night, we can see in our daily lives we use how many types of plastics we use, and hence because of its variety of usage, it has become the fastest growing market all over the world. Coming back to India, when we look at the CPCB data, out of that the variety of use of plastics, the waste generated, if when it was estimated, it came out to be 3.5 million metric tons, which we are generating annually, and out of which only 15.8 lakh tons per annum of plastic waste is was recycled, and 1.67 was co-processed. This is also CPCB data. So if we see the percentage, approximately what the industry says and what the data says is around 50 to 60% of total plastic waste which is generated in India is recycled, and this is a huge problem. If we see that somebody can say that 50% is getting recycled, but the left 50% which is not getting recycled is a menace. It is a huge problem, and the problem we'll come to see later. Now let us see which sector uses the largest amount of plastic. This you can see the dark blue is uh, packaging sector, flexible packaging, and the green 17% is the rigid packaging. So if you see the packaging itself, it is more than half of the usage of plastic is done in packaging sector, and rest are uh,
Ma'am,
small
kindly please
packaging.
change the slide, please.
Can't you see the consumption of plastic in different sectors? Can somebody confirm if you can see the changing slides?
No, ma'am, the slide is not changing. It's the first slide.
Oh, for me it is okay. Now,
Moving.
is it not moving?
No, it's the first slide.
Sixth slide, ma'am. Sixth.
Wait. Now, can you see the pie chart?
Yes, ma'am, we can see.
Okay, thanks. So I was telling you that in this pie chart, you can very easily see that uh, the 42% flexible packaging portion and 17% rigid packaging portion makes plastic most usable in the packaging sector, and then 13% building sector and 9% is like agriculture. But packaging sector, why we are focusing, because packaging is something which is used once and then it is thrown away. So a huge amount, huge volume of waste that comes out of plastic is majorly from packaging sector. And from that uh, and yes, okay, and from that packaging, most of it is single use packaging. This single use packaging is most of the time not passed into the proper channel. It gets littered, it is not collected properly, and it is creating a huge problem. But we know that most of the plastic is recyclable. When we talk about recycling, the most important factor which brings down things to recycling is collection, first segregation and then collection. So when we are talking about general waste also, we know that that in India we are having this problem of segregation and collection. So plastic has become a huge issue, a problematic issue, because we are not segregating it. Plastic is getting mixed with the other kind of waste, and then it is not suitable for upcycling or being used in the same sector. It gets into it gets downcycled, and most of its properties are cannot be used again. So it also comes out of its use which it was intended for and becomes waste, and it cannot be utilized in any of the sectors. Now if we talk about virgin plastic, that also can be recycled for 2 or 3 times only. This also later brings in ends the cycle of reusing it and generates waste more quickly. And if we talk about recycling, we'll come talk. Is also not a safe solution when we talk about plastic, because when we are doing recycling for plastic and we focus majorly on recycling it only, then we know that there are various chemicals which are present in plastic. And when we are doing the recycling, most of the chemicals get leached out even in the formal sector. And when this is done improperly in the informal sector, it all gets leached into the nearby water bodies and the soil. So let us see what is the environmental impact. And because of this impact, environmental and health impact, we are focused on managing plastic waste in a proper manner. As I told earlier, it causes groundwater and soil pollution if the recycling is not done in a proper way, or even if the plastic materials are lying as it is on the soil, in the landfills, or in the water. After some time, the chemicals present in the plastics, they get leached out very slowly, and they contaminate the water in the soil. Similarly, in landfill also, it lies untreated for several years. We can see the huge mounds of waste lying in any city. If specifically we talk about Delhi, this mound looks like a mountain. Ghazipur waste landfill looks like a mountain, and you can imagine for how many years that waste has been lying on that soil, and what would be the condition of soil in that area. So the seeping of plastic also causes soil pollution, and it's not only about plastic now. Now, after recent researches and studies, it has now come down to microplastics. So it is also plastic pollution, chemical pollution, plus the microplastic pollution. And when I'll just give a little detail about microplastics after this. Uh, so we talked about soil pollution, water pollution, marine pollution, which is being focused very much in nowadays. Oceanic pollution. Why? Because this plastic debris through the rivers and all, it reaches finally the oceans, and there it remains in the ocean bed for thousands of years because it doesn't decompose easily, and we all know that it is non-degradable. So in a recent study, it was shown like that there was a rock. It was found, some scientists, some marine scientists, they found a rock, and they were highly interested in that because it looked different. And when they studied that rock, they found that it was not a rock made up of natural materials. That rock was framed by the plastics which was there in the ocean bed. It combined with the salts. It combined with the salt present in the ocean, and it became a huge plastic rock. So this shows a very concerning future, that if plastic is embedded so much into the nature, then what will be the future of the natural elements which are present? We'll be inhaling, we actually are, we'll be inhaling microplastics, we'll be drinking plastics. So apart from plastics, this microplastics, which is very very small, very tiny, it also gets ingested by small creatures, which again get bioaccumulated and then enters the food chain. And remember, humans are at the top of this food chain. So briefly, by this picture, you can see what is the fate of plastic waste, how it reaches with sections. Like, you can see the plastic waste reaches the marine life, then it reaches the soil. Even if when it is getting incinerated, the harmful gases are released into the air. It causes air pollution also. And in all this soil pollution, air pollution, these chemicals getting into the environment.
Slides, ma'am.
Can you see the diagram? Can you see the diagram? Can anyone confirm, please?
Yes, ma'am. The diagram is visible now.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know why the slides, you can see, because at my end they are changing. Okay. So I have explained this diagram, so you can see how plastic waste is impacting the entire environment and also humans. Broadly talking about what are the harmful impacts on humans, we can now everybody knows that because of the harmful chemicals uh, which are there in the plastics, they are some of them are causing. They cause endometriosis. Some of them are even they have the capacity of disrupting the endocrine system. That is, they change the hormonal behavior. It Some of them causes neurological damage, birth defects, even child developmental orders, immune damage, and yes, the respiratory issues are very common. Now, some of the doctors also, some of the studies have become very popular, among which one was during a cardiac surgery, the doctors found traces of microplastics in the heart. So we can see how plastic has entered, microplastics specifically, has entered the human body in the most vital organs. So these are the issues because of which we are talking about managing plastic waste. And hence, some rules were framed, and they were framed initially in 1999. And at that time, there was only restriction on manufacture, sale, and distribution of uh, carry bags, plastic carry bags. And initially, the thickness was 50 microns. Later, in 2011, the rules were again amended, and the thickness was then modified, and it was brought to less than 40 microns. And some responsibilities were assigned to the urban local bodies, that is the municipalities. Again, in 2016, amendments were made, and in those amendments, the state level monitoring system was strengthened. They were given more power. The urban local bodies were held responsible also for the material recovery, and EPR was introduced into plastic waste management. That is, EPR means the producers have to be responsible, the brands have to be responsible for managing the waste they are creating. They are the products which they are uh, influxing into the market. They have to manage the waste arising from those products. Then again in 2018, some more amendments were made, and then in after the 2018 amendments, multi-layered packaging which are used for small packets, they were also brought under the uh, regime of this plastic waste management. And explicit pricing of the carry bags were omitted in those rules. Development of a central registration system was made, wherein the recyclers, the producers, and the manufacturers have to get themselves registered. Uh, they have to report how much plastic are they producing, and how much are they contributing in the EPR system. Then again, in recent amendments, which is in 2021, which the single-use plastic which we're talking about, those single-use plastics were banned, and uh, a few products were initially identified which were banned from using. And these, you can see here, earbuds with plastic sticks, plastic sticks for balloons, plastic bags, candy sticks, and all, they have been listed here. They are banned from using. Again, another amendment was made, which was second amendment, which was made in 2022. Here, when we are talking so much about plastic waste, plastic is a problem, then in the meanwhile, compostable plastic, biodegradable plastic products came into the market, and people started using them very frequently and they didn't even think ki, how are these bioplastics made, are they completely recyclable, completely compostable? No testing were done. And after some time, the issues were found that the compostable plastics which are being thrown into the market, which are being influxed into the market at such a high rate, they were not compostable, they were not biodegradable, they were a mix of plastic and some of the compostable things, which was making plastic waste management even more complex. Because then again, very small quantities of plastic, the microplastics, were getting leached, and it was not even possible to it was also mixing into the soil, because people thought it is compostable, they were putting it as a compost, it was freely mixed with the wet waste. So it created a huge problem. So considering that problem of inadvertent use of bioplastics or compostable plastics, the Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules in 2022 brought some standards. And the rule specifies that this biodegradable plastic has to conform to some standard. And the Bureau of Indian Standards, the BIS, will look onto this, and CPCB will certify before making those products available in the market that they are actually biodegradable. And the terms biodegradable and compostable were also specified mentioned very specifically in this amendment rules, that this biodegradable plastic shouldn't need any external process. You put the plastic into the soil and it should degrade naturally. And compostable plastics are those in which some external techniques or process has to be applied to make it to treat it. So the and in this rules, in these amendments, the local bodies and panchayats were also included. Significant responsibilities were given to them. Also, recycled plastic packaging, they also were made it is also made an obligation on these plastic packagings to have a label which will clearly tell you that with how much of recycled plastic is being used in this. And this will be governed by Indian standard ISO. There are different ISO standards. So specific ISO standard will look onto this, and this label will be there on the plastic packaging. They also added a submission. They also added some changes in the submission dates for annual reports, which is being mentioned in details in the notification. And in the earlier versions of the rule, the EPR categories included the rigid plastic, the flexible plastic. And in the new category, as we already have seen, the category of biodegradable plastic was also added in the EPR categories. That means the alternate packaging manufacturers, which are introducing the biodegradable things, they are also responsible to take back their products and recycle it or treat it at their own end. So, till now we have talked about the plastic which can be recycled or reused. So, what about those categories of plastics which cannot be which cannot be recycled, which cannot be put into some other use after they have been used once? So, for that, the provision was made that these plastics can be used in construction purposes. They can be used in construction of roads, and for that, specific conditions have been mentioned by the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. Now, as I said, that recycling is not the only option. So, to manage plastic waste, we should not only consider using things and then getting them into the path of recycling only. There has to be a graded and a graded. There is a graded method, and in that graded method, which we call the 9 hours, the 7 hours, or the 5 hours, the most important is reduction. In that gradation, the most important step and the step which should be seeked first is reduction. whatever we are buying, we should be mindful. This is for also manufacturers, this is also for consumers. So we have to look onto reducing the use of plastics, which will lead to reduction in the waste ultimately. And then comes reuse. Whatever product we are buying, if it is very important, we cannot reduce it from our lifestyle, we cannot reduce it from us, we should think about reusing it. And when we are talking about reusing, there is a recent attempt which is being made by the industry is refill. Several startups have come which are now bringing refillable products in the market, such as this has been introduced initially in the FMCG market, where we buy household products, consumer products like shampoos, like soaps, like detergents, oils, some of the grocery. What the concept is that some of the refillable shops, kiosks are there. They are giving you initially a packet, a container. You can use it, take your product, and when the product is consumed, you go again with the same container, refill the content. So buying packaged product again and again increases the amount of packaging waste. So to reduce this refill initiatives have been introduced. And when we are talking about refill initiatives, if you remember, India has that culture of reusing things, refilling things. We used to initially we used to take our cloth bags, our own containers to take our grocery. So this refill initiative is again promoting the reuse concept which was there in India traditionally, and also this is being now spread globally, that that we have to reuse things, and the manufacturer, the producers have to promote this by introducing refillable options. Then comes recycle. Ultimately, if it has been reused and it cannot be reused anymore, it has to get recycled. And after recycling, the technology and the process of manufacturing product should be as such that we can recover better quality of material. This better quality of material, if it is less loaded with chemicals, if it is less toxic, then it can be disposed safely to the landfill with appropriate technologies. So in this, I guess now the slides are changing. Slides are visible for everyone. May I have one any confirmation that the slides are okay now?
No, ma'am.
You can't see the change slide.
No, we can't see. Now we can see, ma'am. Application of recycled plastics.
Yeah. So earlier I was talking about this one, the steps of uh, prevention of plastic waste.
Yes, ma'am.
Reduce,
We can see.
reuse,
Yes,
recycle.
ma'am.
Okay. So I guess I should not go in slideshow mode. This now it is available. It is visible now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this slide shows the varied applications of recycled plastics. Now, since we are talking about circular economy, what the concept is that things we start should follow a circular path. Nothing should go waste. If we are starting with some resources, getting them into manufacturing, then using recycling, and then from after recycling, the recovered resources should be used again into manufacturing, which is called remanufacturing. So how can we do this? There are certain examples, successful examples, which are there existing today, which is making apparel, clothes, or shoes out of PET bottles. PET bottles are getting recycled. They are made into threads of plastic, and then apparels are made out of them. Then milk pouches, people are making barsati films, or they are making door mats, or from the milk pouches. There have been many initiatives at individual level and small startups which are using these using small scale technologies to convert these plastics into reusable things. Woven sacks are developed into nivar patti. They are used in weaving chairs and cots. Similarly, we can see battery cases into luggage, plastic carry bags into mats, PVC pipes into shoes. So different ways are being devised to make circular use of the plastics, so that less least waste is generated. So I think this is the plastic portion. If anybody has any doubt in plastic, please you can ask. After that, I'll start e-waste. If any of the point is not clear, any questions you want to ask, you can please ask. So I guess nobody has any question. So I move on to the topic of e-waste, which is electronic waste. What is e-waste? The electronic products, or the electrical products which we are using in our daily lives, when they are discarded, when they run out of use, when they are not in working conditions, we dispose them of. That disposed product is then becomes e-waste or electronic waste. So this electronic waste is composed of a huge variety of items, a huge variety of materials like plastics, iron, glass, aluminium, some of the rare metals, some of the precious metals like gold, silver, palladium. So this makes the waste which is generated out of this electronic equipments a very complex one. And why e-waste? Uh, because of its components, the constituents, which are also metals, which are also plastics. Plastics we already have seen how complex it is, how many chemicals are used, and how difficult it is to manage this waste. So, e waste in itself contains metals, plastics, glass, and other small components like precious metals also, and also some additives which are specifically used uh, in manufacturing the products, like flame retardants. These flame retardants are give an added value which makes the product fire safe. But these flame retardants, when they are not treated properly, they release very toxic gases which are very harmful, which are carcinogenic, which cause lung impairment and several issues. So, worldwide, e-waste is a huge problem, but the major issue, the major impact which is seen is in the developing countries. Why? Because e-waste generated even from the developed countries, it is still in prevalence that it is sent back to the developing countries for treatment. And what happens in the developing countries is majorly informal recycling. This informal recycling, improper way of treating this e-waste is has created the huge issue, the pollution issue of, and attracted the uh, concentration of all the scientists, the lawmakers, the policymakers, the workers towards that the importance of proper management of this waste. Talking about how much e-waste is generated in India and why we are talking, is it how much quantity is being generated? Why is this management issue coming? When we see, India ranks third globally in generation of e-waste. The first one is China and then USA. And how much we generate? What the recorded data is by CPCB in the financial year 2021-22, India generated 1.6 million tons of electronic waste, and it has been reported that it increases annually by 31%. And all of this e-waste is not accounted. It is not the major issue is that data is not there. How much e-waste is generated, we don't know as of today. Whatever e-waste generation is recorded is which we get, which is sent into the formal chain, which is recorded. If you are selling your equipment, if you not selling, if you are bringing your equipment back to the producer, if the producers are doing the take back, taking things back, they are recording how much equipment they are taking back, how much was introduced in the market. Only that percentage of data is available to get recorded, which makes it 1.6 million tons. If we look at the e-waste which is sold to the kabadi walas, which is uh, just thrown like mobile phones, the chargers, which is thrown along with the municipal waste, with the regular household waste, this is all unaccounted, and this all goes into the informal sector. And we can see here that the e-waste collected and processed in 2021-22, as mentioned in one of the studies, was just zero point 0.5 million. You can compare it, the data, the amount which is generated and which is collected and processed. So here starts the entire issue, that so much electronic waste is generated and so much and such a less quantity is treated properly. Looking at why we are talking about it, why it is important, you can see in this chart what are the sources of e-waste, what are the constituents, and what are the health effects. Lead, cadmium, mercury, these, the harmful impacts of some of these are very well known. Lead and mercury, minamata, everybody knows how much impact it has on human health and also on environment. So all these constituents are present together in a complex form in this electronic waste. The flow of e-waste is the issue. If the e-waste is collected, segregated, and recycled in a proper way, the issue had been much less problematic. But it starts with the collection. There is no proper collection mechanism of e-waste, even though there are some of the recyclers uh, who are doing collection drives in their vehicles. Only a very little quality of quantity of electronics which are discarded from the households are being collected. The bulk consumers, they are they have this obligation to send, to source their electronic waste through a proper channel to only to the formal recyclers or the registered uh, recyclers, authorized collectors, registered recyclers. But the reality is, the bulk, even the bulk consumers, they are not sending their e-waste, they are not selling, they are not channelizing their e-waste in a proper manner. Most of them is being sold to the informal sector, because when they are selling in bulk, they get huge, they get money in return of that. And this is what uh, is the major issue why e-waste is not getting tracked. We get money for our mobile phones, so we'll give it to the kabadi wala and not give it to the formal recycler, which who will take it for free. So the value we want for this waste is the major issue. Segregation, yes, lack of proper segregation of source segregation of waste at homes also creates this problem. Our headphones, our chargers, broken wires, they all are thrown into the along with the regular waste. So it gets mixed with the waste, and therefore when it reaches the Dalaos, when it reaches the landfills, informal collectors who know the value of this waste, they will pick up this waste, they'll sell it to the bigger traders in return of money, and those traders will channelize it to the informal recyclers. So hence recycling, formal, informal. When it reaches the informal sector, it creates a menace. And then when it reaches in very few quantities to the formal recyclers, yes, it gets recycled in a proper way. But we'll see later how the technology still is lacking for extracting the pure metal. As I was talking about, most of the recycling in not only in India, in most of the developing countries, is done by the informal sector. And the informal sector, the workers who work on this, who dismantle this, who recycle this, who extract the components which have precious metals, they do not use any safety equipments. They are following the processes like open burning of the outer wires to get rid of the plastics and get the copper out of it. They are dissolving the motherboards in acid baths nearby water bodies, which is contaminating the entire water bodies. They are burning it, releasing dioxins, furans, brominated flame retardants, all these complex things into the air, causing variety of lung issues, respiratory problems, and also endocrine issues, in particularly in those areas where these processes are being done, and also in the nearby areas. The workers who come to these sites are mainly unskilled, uneducated, and migratory workers who come, stay for a short while, and then go back to their places. So why it took such a long time to estimate what the health impacts are is because of this. Because the workers used to be there for a very short period of time. So by then, and the impacts of these chemicals is slow and long term. So once they're out of the site, nobody knows what problems they are having, and those workers themselves do not know that the respiratory problem or the infections they are having is because they worked in an informal e-waste sector. So it took a very long time to connect this informal recycling and health impacts together, and bring it to the forefront, that what these workers are facing, and these workers are facing these things, these issues directly, and the people inhabiting in those areas are facing these issues indirectly, which is taking even a longer time. So you can see these pictures. This is how the informal sector operates, uh, and these are the pictures of some of the dismantling sites in Delhi. So you can see they are doing it bare, with bare hands. They are sitting uh, in those in among those chemicals. They have burnt the waste, and the ash, from the ash they extract the metals. That also they are doing it with bare hands. And I don't know whether you can see in the last picture where this man is grinding it with his hands, if it is clear or not. His entire is all the fingers were deformed. There were no nails, the entire fingers, and there were so many people who were having such issues. Their fingers were deformed, and when they were asked that why they are doing this work, because it is impacting their health, they said that they don't have any other option, because they are unskilled, they are uneducated, but they have to earn livelihood for their family, so they are involved in such kind of work. Now this picture gives a bigger view of how uh, the contaminants released from the e-waste get into the environment also, and also to the general population via air, via soil, via water. So we have seen what are the broad health impacts. So, what are the environmental hazards of this e-waste? As I told, the emissions of dioxins and heavy metals are there from improper handling of e-waste. There are also fluids and chemicals which are released into the soil when they are washed there. It also causes not only surface water contamination, also groundwater contamination, cross contamination, and yes, physical injuries. So the chemicals which I was talking earlier, and uh, which are there in the e-waste, and here we can see what particular chemical causes which impact on which part of the body. So numerous studies were made. They saw the impact on human beings and which organs are being impacted. The major being heart, brain, and liver, kidneys. So they started further studies and then realized that uh, there should be proper mechanism of uh, treating this waste. So when we talk about proper mechanism, it becomes very important that these things are regulated. Until unless there is a specific law pertaining to it, the actions are not visible. The results are not will not be visible. So it's not new. Initially, e-waste was not as e-waste regulations were not separate as e-waste regulations. They came under hazardous waste regulations, and also the transfer of this e-waste, which was then hazardous waste, it was restricted. It was not allowed to be transported from one country to the other, understanding that it is being transferred from the developed to the developing nations, causing major impacts to this side of the world. So, after the initial introduction of e-waste into the VE directive, there was focus on proper recycling of e-waste, and guidelines were made first in uh, the developed world, that this should be the guideline. This is how e-waste has to be treated and recycled properly. So the formal sector in developing countries also started flourishing. When we are talking about India, it started mainly with the bulk consumers because it was easy to get to have collection from the bulk consumers, and some of the formal recyclers also started with door to door collection. So the process which is followed in the formal sector is collection, then they send it for disassembly, where it is sometimes manual, sometimes semi automated process. They divide the equipments into major categories, like they are separating the plastic bodies different in different places, the metals in different places, cables in different places, based on what can be extracted from those parts. So this aggregate the components, and then it is sent for shredding, crushing, and then separation of the metals, finally reaching to the recovery of metals, uh, also ferrous, and also precious metals like gold, copper, silver, and palladium. So the procedure which you can see here is being it is being directed by MOEF guidelines uh, for how e-waste should be recycled in India, and that all the recyclers have to follow this level of treatment. The first level, which I said, is dismantling and segregation into hazardous and non-hazardous. The hazardous is directly sent to the third level of treatment, which is basically recycling, and the non-hazardous part is treated separately, where the second level of treatment comes hammering, shredding, and special treatment. For the special treatment also, initially when there was CRT, there was a specific CRT treatment technology which was chalked out by the MOEF guidelines. So this is the broad chart which you can see, as has been discussed, that how e-waste is collected, segregated into different parts, computer separately, mobile separately, other equipment separately, based on what what they can extract from those parts. Then dismantling, which comprised of shredding and component recovery, then metal recovery, and finally the hazardous substances, whatever found was have to be sent to TSDF. TSDF is treatment and storage facilities, which is specifically for the hazardous substances. This is in detail how material recovery is being done. Two major processes in India are being utilized, either hydrometallurgy or pyrometallurgy. Hydrometallurgy is using chemicals to extract the metals, and pyrometallurgy is use of high temperature. So commercially, in whatever recyclers are there, formal recyclers are there in India, commercially on a large scale, they use a combination of both these techniques, hydro and pyrometallurgy. And there are some emerging technologies which, considering that in hydrometallurgy also some of the chemicals are there which come into the environment, impact the environment. Some emerging technologies are there, but they are still in the lab scale. They have not been experimented on a larger scale. So these are biological extraction and hybrid techniques. In biological extraction, some of the microorganisms are used to they absorb the metals from the liquid mix. They are used. It is also not coming to a large scale because of the time it takes a very large time, and it needs a very big infrastructure, which needs maintenance. So it has not been utilized very well on the commercial scale, but studies are going on to develop it further. So now we have talked about the challenges, the issues of informal recycling, why e-waste is causing so much problem, because it is being treated in the informal sector. Many after the rules were implemented, so many formal recyclers got established. They started their processes, they started their factories, their machineries, but still they are not recovering what up to their potential. Why? Because they are not getting the feed, they are not getting the uh, adequate amount of e-waste to uh, run their processes to get sufficient amount of recovered metals from there. When the former recyclers were approached and asked about what challenges they are facing, why this formal recycling is not utilizing its potential, the major challenges, as told by the former recyclers, were lack of awareness. They are not getting, because of this lack of awareness, and people are selling their e-waste to still to the kabadi walas. They are not getting material because there are very few formal recyclers. The cost of the logistics cost for them is very high, which they are not able to meet. They have stiff competition from the smaller informal recyclers, which gets the major chunk of the materials. Lack of strict implementation. Though the rules are there, the recyclers mentioned that the implementation and the monitoring is still lacking. Because of this, the informal sector has come up as their competitor. So now let us see which authorities are responsible for managing this, the formal recyclers, their mechanisms, their functioning, uh, the restrictions that has to be put on the informal recycling. What all authorities are there who are looking into it? So starting with the ground is the urban local bodies, who have to ensure the segregation of e-waste if it if it is getting mixed with the municipal solid waste, and they have to collect it, send it to the authorized collection centers. Then comes the state pollution control boards or pollution control committees. They are responsible for the inventorization, granting authorization, monitoring the recyclers or dismantlers which are there in the state, implementation of the regulations, and then they have to report to CPCB. CPCB is therefore responsible for coordination, setting out guidelines, assessment of e-waste generation and processing, which has to be done on the national level, talking out training and awareness programs, and then sending the reports as compiled from different states to the MOEF. Also, CPCB is responsible for setting targets and compliances, which are there like ROHS, EPR. So, as I told, the rules regarding electronic waste have evolved gradually. So initially, they were a part of hazardous waste. Then, after there was a major accident in one of the dismantling sites, uh, it was focused that this particular category should be separate. The rules should be separate. The guidelines should be separate for this category. So then separate e-waste rule initially came in 2010. Afterwards, there were several amendments, and the recent one was being proposed in 2022. As e-waste management rules 2022. So what are the base main features of the electronic waste management rules 2022? In first, EPR, as we talked about plastics, the manufacturers, the producers are responsible for collecting the waste they are generating out of their products. So once your product is has met its end of life, it is you cannot use it further. You can go and return it to the producer. They have to take it back. It is mandatory on them. And there is a list of categories which come under e-waste in India. Initially, it was around 80 products which were covered, and after the amendment, it came to 106 electrical and electronic equipments. The 2022 e-waste rules also focuses on recycling targets, which has to be met by the producers, and EPR certificate. Initially, the EPR certificate, the producers and the producers recycling organizations were managing. Now it has become obligatory that the EPR certificate has the producer has to get this certificate from the recyclers, registered recyclers. They have to purchase it now. And also reusing of electronic equipments is now being promoted more to increase the life of these products. Therefore, the repair culture is being promoted. Some there is also a dashboard for repairing which has come from CPCB under right to repair initiative. So now you can look on, if you go to the dashboard by CPCB, you can look at what producers are providing repair centers. You can go to the approach those repair centers, take your equipment, they will get repaired. So all this information is now being made available for the uh, public. Also, this e-waste management rules 2022 has included solar panels, because now renewable energy is much is being talked about. So there are rechargeable batteries, solar batteries. So these rules have also included solar photovoltaic modules. They have to be managed under e-waste rules now. Again, the annual returns has to be prepared and submitted by the producers to the state pollution control boards, and audit of stakeholders will be done under these rules. So the rules are there. They have been there since 2010. We have the government has been and the other policy making bodies have been making so many amendments. Why the implementation is not seen to that scale is because of certain challenges. First, of course, is awareness, the prevalence of informal sector because of lack of awareness, the bulk consumers not abiding by the rules, lack of proper recycling technologies. As of in India, the recyclers are operating to the capacity of extracting only gold, silver, and copper. There are a lot of other materials also which are crucial and important into making of that of an electronic equipment, which are getting wasted because they are not extracted from the e-waste. So there is lack of proper technologies for that scale of metal of getting material recovery. There is also lack of monitoring. There is no provision of penalizing the defaulters. Lack of collaboration between the producers and the recyclers to get the most of the recovered material is also an issue, because of which e-waste is, which is a huge resource from which we can get materials and not depend upon the natural resources, not go for mining each and every time. So the concept of urban mining comes from here. E-waste is not a waste. Technically, it is a resource from which several metals and precious materials can be extracted. So, as we talked about circular economy in case of plastics, in case of electronic waste also, when we look into circular economy, this is very important that the e-waste which is being generated is channelized in a proper manner. It is it should get collected, it should get segregated and treated properly with best of technologies to extract metals which can be refined to the grade of primary material and can be used for remanufacturing. So this is how uh, e-waste management has been e-waste management process has been designed. And now a new concept is there in which is called which people are not talking about is eco design. So this is not only about e-waste, not only about plastic waste, it considers everything. When we are talking about eco design is that we manufacture a product such that the least waste is generated out of it. So in all the waste management processes, this designing concept, change in design concept is being introduced so that the waste management is further facilitated in a better way. So this is all about plastic waste and electronic waste management. So here we knew about why plastic waste is important, why it is crucial, why electronic waste is crucial, what are the issues related to these two waste categories, what are the challenges, how are they treated and how they should be treated, and what are the related regulations for these two categories. So if at any point something which is there which is not clear to any one of you, you can please share your doubts. I can go back to the slides and explain it again.
Acharya Makode has raised a hand. Do you have a query? Ashcharya Makode.
Yes.
No, ma'am. Thank you. No, ma'am.
Okay.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, so ma'am, thank you very much for the informative session. And tomorrow again we'll meet at the same time, 4:15. So thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. And if there are any suggestions you want, if I was too fast or you need more clarifications, you can please tell so that I can incorporate it tomorrow. Even if you have any
The
doubt regarding this,
presentation was good and informative, but the only thing initially, I think, due to internet connectivity, the slides were not moving initially. So that is all right.
okay, if you want, I can share the slides. There's no issue. But still, if you have any doubt, you can please ask tomorrow also.
Okay, okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.